Hello, my friend. Tonight we begin a journey together, not through some faraway land or ancient civilization, but through the quiet, often misunderstood world of money, choices, and the life we build with them. At its heart lies a simple yet profound question. What does it mean to be truly wealthy? Is it the glint of luxury cars speeding down the highway, the glitter of a mansion on a hill, or the weight of a bank account swelling with numbers? Or is it something quieter, steadier, something that offers not just riches but freedom? If you find this summary helpful, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Booksnap, and comment below the title of the book you'd like us to summarize next. We'll make it happen soon. Now let's begin. You close your eyes and picture yourself walking through a crowded city street. Billboards tower above you, each one screaming promises, "Get rich quick. Double your money. The secret strategy the experts don't want you to know." You pass by cafes where friends argue about the next hot stock, voices buzzing with excitement. You hear the television through an open window, a financial pundit yelling about today's winners and losers as if the fate of the world depended on his prediction. Everywhere you look, wealth seems to be a chase. People are running, some with briefcases, some with stock apps open, some with fear in their eyes, but few seem at peace. You can almost feel the heat of their desperation, the restless energy that comes from believing wealth is just around the corner, if only they make the right bet. And then you remember a question whispered like an echo in your mind. What if true wealth is not about chasing more, but about learning to need less? The Bogleheads, followers of John Bogle, the humble founder of Vanguard and father of the index fund, begin with this paradoxical truth. Wealth isn't about showing off. It isn't about beating someone else to the prize. It's about crafting a life that feels light, secure, and free. You think back to childhood. Maybe you remember a time when you held $1 in your hand, the paper crinkling between your fingers, and you felt rich. Not because it could buy much, but because it was yours. Over time, the world taught you that wasn't enough. Advertisements insisted that your worth was measured in possessions. Friends compared paychecks. Success became tangled up with status. But beneath all that noise lies something simpler. The authors invite us to peel back the layers of illusion and return to the essence of money. A tool. Not a master, not a measure of our soul, but a tool to build the kind of life we actually want. Imagine yourself walking away from the noisy street and into a quiet garden. Here, there are no flashing tickers or loud predictions, only the gentle sound of wind moving through the trees. This is the spirit of Boglehead investing, a space where the frenzy fades and a quieter truth can be heard, and the question of wealth becomes not how much can I earn, but how much is enough. Not how do I outsmart everyone else, but how do I outlast temptation and fear? Because wealth, the book suggests, is not just about dollars compounding in an account. It's about compounding peace of mind. It's the security of knowing you won't be enslaved by debt. It's the comfort of knowing your family is protected. It's the dignity of aging with choices still in your hands, not stripped away by missteps or greed. And so, the journey begins not with formulas or stock charts, but with a shift in perspective. You stand at a crossroads between two paths. On one, the restless road of speculation, promises of quick riches, and inevitable disappointment. On the other, the quieter path of patience, discipline, and trust in a system that grows slowly but surely, like seeds planted in spring. As you take that first step, you feel lighter already. The chase no longer controls you. The dream is no longer to have more than the next person, but to build enough for a life that feels whole. The Bogleheads guide you with a gentle hand on your shoulder. True wealth, they whisper, is freedom. Freedom from worry. Freedom from debt. Freedom from the noise. And with that, the story unfolds. The street grows louder as you step back into the flow of the city. Screens in every shop window flash red and green, charts rising and crashing like ocean waves. Men in suits rush past, their eyes glued to glowing phones, murmuring numbers as if chanting a secret language. A cab driver leans out his window, arguing about a stock tip with a passenger. Even in the cafe across the street, the hum of conversation is the same. Buy, sell, hold, panic, repeat. This is the noise of Wall Street. It seduces with the promise of quick gains. It frightens with the threat of sudden losses, and it thrives on your impatience. Every headline screams urgency, don't miss out, or act before it's too late, and in those frantic words you feel a pressure. If you don't jump now, you'll be left behind. You pause, listening closely. Beneath the noise, there's a rhythm, a cycle that repeats endlessly. The market surges upward and people boast of brilliance. Then it plunges downward, and those same people vanish in shame. They call it skill when they win, but luck when others lose. Around and around it spins, like a carnival ride that never stops, tossing riders until they're too dizzy to think. Once, maybe, you believed that's what investing was. A game of who could guess right more often. Maybe you even felt the rush of placing a bet, watching a stock climb and thinking, I've cracked the code. But the next week, when it fell, that rush turned to a knot in your stomach. The truth is, the noise was never there to guide you. It was there to keep you chasing. You notice the headlines more carefully now. Each one is designed not to inform, but to stir emotion, greed, fear, envy, panic. Because when you are emotional, you are vulnerable. And when you are vulnerable, you trade. And every trade feeds the system that profits off your churn, not your success. In this chaos, ordinary people lose sight of what matters. They don't see the hidden costs, the fees that nibble away at their returns, the taxes triggered by frantic buying and selling, the stress that erodes their peace of mind. They become players in a rigged casino, where the house always takes its cut and the gamblers mistake luck for wisdom. But here, in the heart of the frenzy, you sense something else, a truth waiting quietly behind the curtain of noise. The market, in all its chaos, has a history, a long, steady history. For over a century, despite wars, recessions, crashes, and panics, the broad market has risen, rewarding patience and resilience. It's as if the market itself is two different creatures. One is the roaring beast you see on television, thrashing violently day by day. The other is a slow, steady giant, trudging upward through time, almost invisible in the short term, unstoppable in the long run. The Bogleheads remind us that the beast is an illusion. It's the giant we must trust. So you take a step back. The screens blur, the shouting fades. You imagine the market not as flashing lights on a ticker, but as a vast field of crops. Each company is a plant, some tall and strong, some fragile, some failing. Together they rise and fall with the seasons, but the field as a whole endures. If you try to sprint from one plant to another, chasing whichever looks tallest today, you exhaust yourself. But if you own the field and wait through the cycles, you harvest abundantly. That is the great secret hidden beneath the noise. You don't have to outguess the market. You don't have to beat it at its own game. You only have to own it and be patient. And so, as the crowd continues to chase the next tip, the next hot stock, you turn away. The noise is still there, but it no longer commands you. You walk with a calmer step, ready to hear the quiet voice of wisdom waiting ahead. Because beyond the shouting traders and blaring screens lies a man who changed everything. A man who dared to say that the best way to win was not to play their game at all. You find yourself moving farther from the flashing tickers and restless shouts until you enter a small, sunlit study. The walls are lined not with television screens but with shelves of books. Histories, economics, letters, stories of people who lived not for the spotlight but for endurance. At the center of the room sits an elderly man with kind eyes, his posture unassuming, his tone measured and calm. This is John Bogle. There is nothing flashy about him. He does not sell dreams of doubling your money overnight. He does not thunder predictions of where the market will be tomorrow. Instead, he leans forward, his voice steady, and speaks of something that feels almost radical in its simplicity. Don't try to beat the market. Just own it and let time do the heavy lifting. At first, you resist. Isn't investing supposed to be exciting? Aren't the winners the ones who play smarter, who discover the hidden gems before anyone else does? Bogle shakes his head gently. The data tells a different story. Decade after decade, study after study, the truth holds. The vast majority of active managers, the professionals with research teams, insider access, and dazzling credentials, fail to outperform the market in the long run. They charge high fees, spin convincing tales, but when measured honestly, most of them trail behind the very market they are trying to outguess. It is like watching a marathon where runners dart ahead in bursts, only to collapse, exhausted, while a quiet, steady walker keeps moving forward, never stopping. By the end, the walker arrives at the finish line stronger, calmer, and with less strain. That walker, Bogle insists, is the index fund. You imagine an index fund as a humble basket. Inside it are not the flashy, hand-picked winners of Wall Street, but the entire market itself. Every company, every sector gathered together. When one company falters, another rises. When a bubble bursts, the basket absorbs the blow. There are no costly managers shuffling pieces. No endless trading that eats away at gains. The basket simply mirrors the market's steady climb through history. Bogle explains that investing isn't about brilliance, but about discipline. It isn't about predicting tomorrow's headline, but about enduring decades of noise with quiet faith. It isn't about chasing the extraordinary, but about embracing the ordinary. Because the ordinary, compounded over time, becomes extraordinary beyond imagination. His philosophy feels almost like a whisper in a crowded hall, soft but undeniable. "Don't look for the needle in the haystack," he says with a small smile. "Just buy the haystack." As he speaks, you realize this isn't just financial advice. It's a way of living. It's humility over arrogance, patience over haste, trust in the long arc of time over the temptation of shortcuts. You recall moments in your life where patience proved more powerful than cleverness, a friendship that grew stronger over years, a skill that deepened only through repetition, a garden that blossomed only because you resisted the urge to uproot it too soon. Investing, Bogle suggests, is no different. The market rewards those who plant seeds and wait, not those who dig them up in search of faster results. And so, you begin to see the wisdom here, that true success in investing isn't about brilliance, but about behavior. It's about building habits strong enough to withstand the storms. It's about resisting the endless whisper of greed that tempts you to chase, and the roar of fear that begs you to flee. The man in the study leans back in his chair. His eyes glimmer not with the pride of someone who outsmarted others, but with the quiet satisfaction of someone who discovered truth and shared it freely. For millions, his simple invention, the index fund, became the key to financial independence. For millions more, his philosophy of low costs, discipline, and long-term vision became the antidote to Wall Street's relentless noise. As you leave the room, his words echo in your heart. Investing doesn't need to be complicated. It doesn't need to be dramatic. In fact, the best kind of investing is boring, and that is its brilliance. You step back into your journey with a newfound sense of calm. The noise still rages in the distance, but it feels smaller now, less threatening. In its place rises a quiet voice reminding you, own the market, lower your costs, stay the course. Ahead lies the next lesson, one that reaches beyond charts and numbers into the very choices you make each day about how you live, how you spend, and how you save. The lesson begins not in a bank, nor in the stock exchange, but in the quiet rhythms of everyday life. You find yourself standing in a modest kitchen, the smell of fresh coffee rising from a chipped mug, a handwritten budget pinned to the refrigerator with a magnet shaped like a heart. On the surface, there is nothing extraordinary here. No luxury cars in the driveway, no designer suits hanging in the closet, no gleaming watch ticking on the wrist. And yet, within this home lies a kind of strength far rarer than gold, the power of living below one's means. It sounds simple, almost too simple. Spend less than you earn. Save the difference. But in a world that constantly whispers, buy more, show more, prove more, this act of restraint becomes a quiet rebellion. Every commercial urges you to measure your worth by what you own. Every social feed flashes pictures of vacations, gadgets, upgrades. But beneath the glitter lies a dangerous truth. Most of that display is borrowed, financed, stretched thin. Debt dressed up as success. Living below your means is the opposite. It is choosing freedom over appearances, security over performance. It is saying, I don't need to prove anything to anyone. You remember times in your own life when money slipped like sand through your fingers. A dinner out here, a gadget there, each purchase harmless on its own, until suddenly the paycheck was gone and nothing remained but a faint memory of pleasure. But you also remember the pride of the first time you saved. Maybe it was a few dollars in a piggy bank, or the thrill of seeing a savings account balance climb. That pride felt different, lasting, solid. The Bogleheads teach that investing begins not in the market, but in your habits. Before you can let money grow, you must first create the space for it to stay. And that means building a life where you consistently spend less than you earn. Not just once, not just for a season, but as a way of living. It doesn't mean deprivation. It doesn't mean denying yourself joy. It means clarity. It means choosing intentionally. A modest car that runs well instead of the flashy model that eats away at your paycheck. A home that feels warm and loved rather than oversized and empty. Meals cooked at home with laughter instead of endless bills at restaurants meant to impress. Each choice is small, but together they form the foundation on which true wealth is built. You picture it like a garden again. Each dollar saved is a seed. Some days it feels insignificant, just one tiny seed dropped into the soil. But over years, as those seeds accumulate, the garden grows lush and abundant. And, unlike the fleeting thrill of spending, this garden offers fruit that keeps giving back. The power of frugality lies not only in saving money, but in shaping your character. You learn patience. You learn resilience. You learn that joy does not come from accumulation, but from gratitude. And with each dollar you choose not to spend recklessly, you gain not just savings, but strength. Strength against emergencies. Strength against temptation. Strength to invest with confidence because you know you are not overextended. There is an almost spiritual weight to this lesson. Living below your means is not about scarcity, but about abundance. It is about creating margin in your life. Space where money is not master, but servant. Space where you can breathe, where you can dream, where you can give. The Bogleheads remind us of countless stories. Families of modest income who retired with dignity because they lived with discipline. Teachers and nurses who quietly built fortunes not through high salaries, but through consistent saving. Janitors who left behind millions not because they chased Wall Street's noise, but because they avoided it, quietly living with restraint and patience. And so, the power of living below your means is not a sacrifice. It is liberation. Every time you choose to save instead of spend, you buy yourself a piece of freedom. Freedom from debt collectors. Freedom from fear when the car breaks down. Freedom to invest, to let your money grow, to look to the future not with anxiety but with peace. As you leave the kitchen, the modest budget still pinned to the fridge, you carry with you a new understanding. The path to wealth is not lined with extravagance, but with quiet choices repeated faithfully over time. The house may be small, the car may be old, the clothes may be simple, but the future they create is vast. And in that truth, you sense the next great secret of investing. That money, once saved, does not sit idle. It has the power to multiply, to compound, to turn today's sacrifice into tomorrow's abundance. You stand before a single coin resting in your palm. It feels light, almost trivial. What difference could one coin make? You flip it between your fingers, the metal catching a glint of sunlight, and for a moment it seems ordinary, insignificant against the vast backdrop of markets and fortunes. But as you look closer, you begin to imagine that coin not as a frozen object, but as a seed. And like a seed, its true power lies not in what it is today, but in what it can become tomorrow, and the day after, and the decades beyond. This is the magic of compound growth. At first glance, compounding feels like a small trick of arithmetic. Money earning interest, and then that interest earning its own interest, repeating over time. But in practice, it is nothing short of miraculous. It is the quiet force that transforms the modest into the mighty, the ordinary into the extraordinary. The Bogleheads remind us of the simplest truth. The earlier you plant, the greater your harvest. Imagine two friends. One begins saving in her 20s, modestly, steadily, never missing a year. The other delays, waiting until her 40s to begin. Though she contributes more each year, she can never quite catch up, because time, not timing, is the ultimate multiplier. You see it in numbers, yes, but more vividly in your mind's eye. That single coin you held becomes 2. 2 becomes 4. 4 becomes 8. The growth is slow at first, almost invisible, like the first shoots of a seedling breaking through the soil. But with patience the growth accelerates, building upon itself, spreading roots deep and branches wide until what was once a coin in your hand has become a towering oak tree, shading generations to come. And yet the power of compounding is fragile. It requires protection. Every time you raid your savings for fleeting pleasures, you are cutting branches from the tree. Every time you chase quick profits and fall into losses, you uproot seedlings before they bloom. Compounding asks for loyalty, patience, and above all, time. You think back to moments in your life where patience bore fruit. The long hours of study that finally paid off in understanding. The friendships that grew stronger not through grand gestures, but through years of quiet consistency. The skills that deepened only after countless repetitions. Compounding is not just a financial principle. It is a life principle. Growth layered upon growth, invisible in the moment, unstoppable in the long run. The book shares a powerful truth. Wealth is not built in sudden leaps, but in steady steps. The small act of saving today may not feel heroic, but give it decades, and it will outpace the boldest gamble. Compounding rewards, not brilliance, but endurance. It's like watching a clock tick. In the beginning, each second feels meaningless. But left unchecked, those seconds become minutes. The minutes become hours. The hours shape days. And the days shape a life. Time transforms the tiny into the monumental. And so you realize, the magic of compounding is not a secret available only to the rich, nor a trick reserved for the lucky. It is a force available to anyone willing to start early, stay steady, and trust time. You step forward in your journey, coin still in your hand. But now, it no longer feels small. It feels like potential, alive and growing, whispering of a future much larger than itself. You understand that the path to wealth isn't paved with shortcuts or strokes of genius, but with consistency, patience, and faith in the quiet miracle of growth upon growth. But as you prepare to let your coin grow, another warning rises. For even the mightiest oak can be weakened, not by storms, but by slow, hidden termites. In investing, those termites are the high fees and hidden costs that eat away at your future. Silent, constant, invisible to the distracted eye. You stand before the oak tree of compounding. Tall and proud, its branches reaching wide into the sky. Its strength feels eternal, its growth unstoppable. But then you lean closer. Beneath the bark, hidden from the eye, you see them. Small, silent, relentless termites. They do not roar like storms or strike like lightning. They nibble, slowly, patiently, every day. And if left unchecked, They can hollow out the strongest trunk until nothing remains but a fragile shell. This is the trap of high fees. When you first begin investing, the percentages seem harmless. 1% here, 0.5% there. A few dollars each month for management. A glossy brochure, a charming advisor, the promise that professionals will guide your money to greatness. The costs appear invisible, tucked neatly into fine print, buried in statements few bother to read. But the truth is harsher. Every fraction of a percent carved away from your returns is a wound in your future wealth. The Bogleheads strip away the illusion. Consider this. Two investors begin with the same amount of money, earning the same returns. But one pays 2% a year in fees, the other only 0.2%. At first, the difference is barely noticeable, a small gap. But as decades pass, the gap becomes a canyon. What could have grown into a secure retirement, a legacy for children, a life of choice, is instead consumed by invisible costs, siphoned off year after year until what remains is only a fraction of what might have been. It's not just numbers, it's years of freedom lost, vacations never taken, dreams postponed, security traded away for promises that rarely come true. You imagine yourself walking through the grand lobbies of financial firms. Marble floors gleam, fountains sparkle, advisors stride confidently in tailored suits. These temples are built not on your gains, but on your fees. The lavishness you see is the quiet transfer of your future wealth into their present luxury. The great irony is that most of these managers cannot even deliver what they promise. Study after study shows that few outperform the simple index over the long run, and yet their fees remain. They win whether you win or lose, while you shoulder the risk. John Bogle called it for what it was: the tyranny of compounding costs. Just as compounding can work for you, relentlessly growing your wealth, costs compound against you, quietly draining it. It is a double-edged sword. Harnessed wisely, compounding is a miracle. Ignored, it becomes a curse. So the Bogleheads urge us to look closely, to demand transparency, to understand that every percentage point matters. Choosing a fund with a lower expense ratio is not a minor detail. It is the difference between building an enduring oak tree or one that crumbles under the slow gnaw of termites. You think back to your own life, to moments where little leaks became floods, a slow drip from a faucet that, unchecked, filled a sink, a small crack in a dam that grew until the wall gave way. Money works the same way. The leak is small, but over years it becomes devastating. And so, the wisdom is clear. Keep your costs low. Avoid the glossy brochures, the too-good-to-be-true promises, the constant churn of trading that lines the pockets of others at your expense. Simplicity is your shield. Index funds, with their low expenses, allow your wealth to grow without the termites eating away unseen. As you walk away from the marble halls of Wall Street, you carry a sharper awareness. The trap of high fees is not dramatic, not obvious, but it is deadly. And the only protection is vigilance, humility, and discipline. Ahead, a new clarity begins to form. If high fees are the termites, then index funds are the fortress. Unglamorous, steady, but impenetrable to those who would decipher your future, far from the noise of traders and the polished marble of financial firms. Here, there are no flashing screens or urgent voices. Instead, spread out before you is a simple, wide basket. At first glance, it looks plain. No shine, no decoration, nothing to catch the eye. But as you lean closer, you realize what rests inside: the entire market itself. Hundreds, even thousands of companies, large and small, strong and weak, each represented not as a gamble but as a piece of a whole. This is the index fund. It is not exciting. It does not promise to uncover hidden gems or to beat the competition. It does not whisper of secret strategies or insider knowledge. Instead, it offers something far more powerful: quiet certainty that, as the market grows, you grow with it. The beauty of index funds lies in their humility. They do not pretend to be smarter than the market. They simply are the market. Every company, every industry, every triumph, every failure, all gathered in one place. When a giant stumbles, others rise to take its place. When one industry wanes, another blossoms. You are no longer at the mercy of a single stock, a single sector, or a single prediction. You hold the entire economy in your hand. You imagine again the field of crops. Active investors run frantically from one row to another, trying to guess which stalk will grow tallest. But the index fund is the farmer who owns the whole field. He does not need to guess. He simply waits, season after season, knowing that while some plants will fail, the field itself will thrive. The power here is not in outsmarting others, but in removing the need to. By eliminating the endless churn of trading, by keeping costs astonishingly low, index funds free compounding to do its work unhindered. Every dollar you invest is a dollar that belongs to you, not siphoned away by management fees or eaten up by bad guesses. John Bogle's genius was not in inventing something flashy, but in trusting something eternal, the resilience of the market over time. He understood that while individuals and industries may rise and fall, the collective strength of human creativity, innovation, and productivity always drives upward. By holding the whole, you capture that unstoppable force, and there is something almost poetic in its fairness. Index funds give ordinary people the same access once reserved for elites. You do not need millions to hire brilliant analysts. You do not need secret knowledge or expensive advice. With a simple fund, you share in the same growth as the wealthiest, riding the same upward tide. You think back to the lessons already learned. Live below your means, save steadily, protect your wealth from high fees. And now, this basket, simple, unassuming, yet mighty, becomes the vessel where your seeds of discipline can grow into forests. It is not about excitement. It is about peace. When others boast of short-term victories or panic at sudden losses, you remain steady. You own the whole market. You trust the long march of progress. You are no longer gambling. You are participating in the collective story of growth itself. The beauty of index funds, then, is not just financial. It is emotional. They free you from the endless question of what's next. They allow you to stop chasing, stop guessing, stop fearing that you are missing out. Instead, you can turn your energy toward living, toward family, toward dreams, toward the life you want, while your investments quietly, faithfully, grow in the background. As you leave the clearing basket still in your hands, you feel lighter. No longer burdened by the impossible task of predicting the future, you trust in the wisdom of owning it instead. And yet, even as this clarity settles, another truth arises. While index funds are powerful, they do not erase the reality of risk. For every investor, the dance between fear and courage, between risk and return, still remains. The path ahead grows narrower, the light shifting as clouds drift across the sky. You feel it in your chest, that subtle tightening, the unease of uncertainty. Investing, after all, is not a story without danger. To walk this road is to dance with risk, and it is here, in this delicate balance, that the next lesson reveals itself. You step into a vast hall, its floor made of polished stone. Musicians play softly in the background, and on the floor, pairs of dancers move in graceful circles. Some glide confidently, eyes steady, steps measured. Others stumble, tripping over their own feet, either too timid to move or too reckless to control their pace. This is the dance of risk and return. Every investment carries risk. Stocks surge with the potential for great reward, but they fall with equal force. Bonds move more gently, offering stability but rarely excitement. To invest is to choose a partner, the bold but volatile dancer of risk, or the cautious but steady partner of safety. And the truth is, neither can be ignored. You remember times in your own life when fear whispered, Stay safe, don't move, don't risk anything. And yet, staying still had its cost. Opportunities passed by. Growth never came. But then there were times when greed shouted louder. Take it all, reach higher, go faster. And in chasing recklessly, you stumbled, losing more than you gained. Investing mirrors life. Risk and return must move in harmony. The Bogleheads explain it clearly. Greater returns come only by accepting greater risk. There is no shortcut, no secret path where safety and high return exist together. But risk does not mean recklessness. It means balance. The dance is not about never stumbling, but about finding a rhythm you can sustain through every season. You imagine a storm rolling in. The stock market plunges, headlines scream of collapse, neighbors whisper of pulling out before it's too late. Fear surges like a wave, and every instinct tells you to run. But the truth is, storms always come. They are part of the rhythm. And just as storms pass, so too does the market rise again. Those who flee at the first clap of thunder often miss the sunshine that follows. Those who stay, anchored and balanced, see their fields bloom when the skies clear. And yet, courage without caution is just as dangerous. The investor who throws everything into risk, who chases only the boldest bets, may look brilliant in the good times but faces ruin when the tide turns. Discipline lies in knowing your limits. How much risk you can bear without breaking. How much volatility you can endure without panic. This is where self-knowledge becomes your compass. Investing is not just about numbers, it is about temperament. Can you sleep at night when your portfolio falls by 20%? Can you resist the urge to sell when everyone around you is panicking? Can you stay steady when greed tempts you with promises of quick wealth? The right balance of risk and return is not universal. It is personal, shaped by your heart as much as by your bank account. The dance continues in the hall, partners circling with grace. Some hold their heads too high, tripping with arrogance. Others cling too tightly, afraid to step. But those who move with rhythm, patient and balanced, glide across the floor with ease. And so, you begin to see the truth. Investing is not about avoiding risk, but about managing it. It is not about chasing return, but about harmonizing both in a way that lets you stay the course. As you leave the hall, the music fading behind you, you carry with you a deeper calm. Risk is no longer an enemy to be feared or a thrill to be chased. It is a partner. Unpredictable, yes, but necessary. And the next step of the journey reveals how to structure this partnership into something enduring, the art of asset allocation, the building of a financial home where both risk and safety can coexist. You step from the Hall of Dancers into the open air, where the sky is clear and the horizon stretches wide. Before you lies an unfinished house. Beams rising, foundations set, but walls still waiting to be built. Its frame stands firm against the wind, but you can see how vulnerable it would be if left incomplete. And in that image, the next lesson reveals itself. Investing is not only about risk and return, but about building a financial home strong enough to endure. This home is your portfolio, and its architecture depends on asset allocation, the deliberate choice of how much to place in stocks, bonds, and other holdings. Stocks are the fire in the hearth, bright, hot, and full of energy, but unpredictable. Bonds are the stone walls, steady, sheltering, less exciting, but enduring. Cash is the foundation, unyielding and dependable, though it does not grow. To build a home that lasts, you must decide how much fire, how much stone, how much ground to stand on. The Bogleheads remind us, allocation is everything. More than the individual funds you pick, more than the trends of the moment, it is the balance of assets that determines the stability of your future. Too much fire, and the home may blaze brightly but risk burning down in the storm of a crash. Too much stone, and the home may endure, but feel cold and stagnant, never growing beyond its walls. The art lies in balance. You imagine two families. One fills their home with nothing but fire, chasing heat and light. In good years, their home glows brighter than any other. But when storms come, the flames consume, leaving ash. The second family builds only with stone. Their home never falters, but neither does it expand. Their children inherit safety, but not abundance. The wisest family mixes fire and stone, enough warmth to grow, enough shelter to endure. This is asset allocation. A balance tailored not by greed or fear, but by your own stage of life, your own resilience, your own needs. In youth, with decades ahead, you can afford more fire, more stocks, for you have time to rebuild from any blaze. As you age, you begin to add stone, bonds, building walls that protect your years of work, and throughout you maintain a foundation of cash, small but steady for emergencies, so storms never sweep you from your home. But allocation is not only about numbers, it is about discipline. It is about resisting the urge to chase fire when others boast of its glow. It is about refusing to abandon stone when its stillness feels dull. It is about committing to the blueprint you have chosen, knowing it reflects your needs, not the world's noise. You recall moments in your own life where balance mattered. A work schedule that demanded too much left you burned out. A routine too cautious left you stagnant. But when you found the middle path, when you allowed both risk and rest, both ambition and patience, you thrived. Asset allocation is the same principle, carried into money, a harmony between growth and protection. The Bogleheads often use the metaphor of a ship. Stocks are the sails, catching the wind and propelling you forward. Bonds are the ballast, heavy and stabilizing, keeping you upright in turbulent seas. Without sails, you never move. Without ballast, you capsize. Together, they carry you across oceans. And so, as you stand before the unfinished house, you feel clarity. Building your financial home is not about finding the perfect stock, nor the hottest trend, but about choosing the right structure for your life. It is not the bricks themselves, but how you place them that gives the house its strength. You imagine, years from now, sitting inside that completed home. The storms rage outside, markets falling, headlines screaming, but you feel calm. Your foundation is firm, your walls strong, your fire warm but contained. You are safe, not because you predicted the storm, but because you built to withstand it. This is the gift of asset allocation. Not certainty, but resilience. Not control over the market, but control over yourself. And it leads naturally to the next great truth. No matter how carefully you build, storms will come. The question then becomes, can you stay inside your home and hold steady when the world outside demands you run? The winds begin to rise. The skies darken. You can hear the distant murmur of thunder rolling across the horizon. The home you've built, with its foundation, its balance of fire and stone, now faces its first true test. This is the storm every investor must endure, the season when headlines scream, markets tumble, and neighbors whisper fear into your ear. It is here, in the chaos, that one lesson matters above all: the strength of staying the course. You picture the great crashes of history. In 1929, when fortunes vanished overnight and breadlines stretched for blocks. In 2000, when the glittering promise of the dot-com era collapsed into dust. In 2008, when the world seemed on the brink of collapse and even seasoned investors trembled. Each time, panic swept the land. People sold their investments at the bottom, running from the fire they had so carefully tended. Some never returned, scarred forever by fear. And yet, in every storm, the same truth revealed itself. The market fell, yes, but it rose again. Always. Not quickly, not without pain, but inevitably, relentlessly, like the sun breaking through after the darkest night. Those who abandoned ship locked in their losses. Those who stayed, who gritted their teeth and endured, emerged not just intact, but stronger. You imagine yourself during one of these storms. The headlines shout, "This time is different." Friends call you, urging you to sell before it's too late. Your account balance drops, each red number like a punch to the gut. Every instinct screams for action. But then you remember Bogle's words. Don't just do something, stand there. It feels counterintuitive, almost impossible, to do nothing in the face of chaos. And yet, that stillness is the anchor. By staying invested, by refusing to surrender to fear, you allow time to do its healing work. The storm rages, but the oak of compounding continues to grow beneath the surface. The field you own still yields crops, even if battered by the season. The giant of the market still trudges forward, even if for now it stumbles. Staying the course is not passive. It is active courage. It is the discipline to silence the noise, to trust your plan, to endure discomfort in service of a greater future. It is the understanding that markets are designed to test your patience, to shake your resolve, to tempt you into abandoning your path. But if you hold, if you endure, you reap the rewards others surrender. Think of the sailors in a storm. The untrained leap into the sea, convinced the ship is sinking. The wise tighten the ropes, lower the sails, and wait. The waves crash, the wind howls, but the ship holds. When dawn comes, those who jumped are lost. Those who stayed aboard sail on. The Bogleheads teach that market downturns are not aberrations. They are part of the journey. Just as winters come to every field, just as droughts test every harvest, bear markets are inevitable. The choice is not whether they come, but how you respond when they do. You recall moments in your own life when quitting too soon cost you dearly. The instrument you stopped practicing just before mastery. The project abandoned just before it bore fruit. The relationship surrendered too quickly. And you remember, too, the victories that came only because you endured. The marathon finished after miles of pain. The skill honed after years of repetition. The dream realized after countless setbacks. Investing asks for the same resilience. As you stand in the storm, you realize that staying the course is not just about money. It is about character. It is about proving to yourself that you can withstand fear, that you can resist panic, that you can honor the plan you set when skies were clear. And in that steadfastness, you find peace. The storm will pass, the skies will clear, the market will rise, and when it does, you will still be here. Not because you predicted, not because you outsmarted, but because you endured. Ahead, as the winds begin to quiet, another truth emerges. That simplicity, often dismissed as boring, is the very reason you can stay steady in storms. Complexity breeds panic. Simplicity breeds strength. And so, the journey turns toward the grace of keeping things simple. The storm clouds drift away, and in their wake the world feels fresh again. The air is lighter, the sky clearer, the ground firm beneath your feet. You look back at the tempest you endured and feel a quiet pride, not for outsmarting the storm, but for holding fast when it would have been easier to run. And now, in this calm, another lesson arrives, like the still reflection of the sky on a pond, the grace of simplicity. It is easy, in money and in life, to believe that complexity is sophistication. Wall Street thrives on this belief. Exotic products with names no one fully understands, strategies layered with jargon, funds built from other funds. The more complicated it looks, the more valuable it must be. Or so the illusion goes. But when you peel back the layers, you often find not wisdom, but confusion. Not strength, but fragility. The Bogleheads teach a different way. The simplest path, low-cost index funds, steady savings, disciplined asset allocation, is not only the easiest to understand, but the most powerful. Complexity doesn't improve returns. It often destroys them. Like a cluttered room, complexity breeds stress, obscures truth, and makes it harder to see what really matters. You recall moments in your own life when simplicity brought peace. The day you cleared a crowded desk and found clarity in the empty space. the moment you stepped away from endless obligations and focused only on what mattered most. In those moments, simplicity was not just a choice, but a form of strength, a declaration that you would not be ruled by clutter or distraction. Investing works the same way. Think of a river. When it flows clean and straight, it moves swiftly toward the sea. But when it splits into countless winding streams, when it detours into backwaters, its energy dissipates, its strength is lost. Simplicity is that clean flow. It directs your resources with focus, allowing compounding to work unhindered. The beauty of simplicity is also psychological. In a world of endless financial noise, a simple plan frees you from anxiety. You do not need to track dozens of funds, analyze endless data, or chase trends. You know your path, and that knowledge brings calm. While others argue, panic, or boast of complex strategies, you quietly continue, steady and sure. Bogle himself was famous for this humility. He often said, "Don't look for the needle in the haystack, just buy the haystack." In those few words lies a philosophy that reshapes everything. Why exhaust yourself in the futile search for hidden treasures when the whole field, in its entirety, already guarantees abundance? And simplicity does not mean smallness. In fact, it magnifies growth. By stripping away distractions, costs, and complexity, your money works harder, your discipline strengthens, and your peace of mind deepens. What looks plain on the surface becomes profound in practice. You imagine two investors. One with a complicated portfolio, chasing new funds, watching screens late into the night, juggling numbers until his head spins. The other with a simple plan. One or two broad index funds, automatic contributions, patience. Years pass. The first grows weary, distracted, often defeated. The second thrives, not because of genius, but because of consistency. The difference is not intelligence, but clarity. And so, simplicity becomes more than a financial strategy. It becomes a philosophy of living. It is the grace of focusing on what matters most, of freeing yourself from unnecessary burdens, of choosing peace over complexity. As you walk forward, the path feels clearer now. The storms of the market no longer frighten you, for your home is well built. The noise of Wall Street no longer distracts you, for you follow a simpler voice. And as you reflect, another truth rises gently in your heart, that all of this, the saving, the discipline, the investing, was never only about money. It was about something greater, something money alone can never buy. Ahead, the journey draws toward its end. A revelation about the wealth that cannot be counted, but can be felt, shared, and lived. The path narrows now, the noise of the city and the storms of the market falling away behind you. Ahead is a quiet meadow, golden in the light of the setting sun. You sit for a moment, the air still, the horizon wide, and in that stillness the final truth unfolds. The wealth that money cannot buy. After all the lessons, living below your means, trusting compounding, avoiding fees, embracing simplicity, you realize that money was never the true destination. It was only a tool, a servant, a means of shaping something deeper, a life of freedom, dignity, and meaning. You imagine the faces of those you love. Family gathered around a table, laughter spilling like music. A child taking her first steps without fear because her future is secure. A partner resting easy at night, knowing tomorrow holds stability. These are not numbers on a statement. These are not tickers on a screen. This is the wealth of peace, the wealth of time, the wealth of choice. The Bogleheads remind us that investing is not about becoming rich in comparison to others, but about being rich in the ways that matter most. It is about reaching a point where you are no longer enslaved to debt, no longer shackled by fear, no longer chasing endlessly for more. It is about being able to give, to your children, your community, the causes that stir your soul, without anxiety that you will not have enough. Think of the janitor who lived simply, quietly saving, investing, and at his passing left millions to a hospital and a library. Think of the teacher who retired not in luxury but in freedom, spending her days with grandchildren, traveling when she pleased, never worrying about bills. These stories remind us, the truest measure of wealth is not accumulation, but the life you are free to live because of it. And then you look inward. What does wealth mean to you? Is it the absence of worry? The ability to choose how you spend your days? The grace of waking each morning knowing you are not owned by a paycheck, a lender, or the judgment of others? Whatever your answer, it is this freedom that Bogle and his followers invite you to claim. As the sun lowers, you see again the oak tree of compounding, now tall and strong, shading the meadow with its wide branches. You see the modest home built with balance and discipline, standing firm against storms. You see the basket of the index fund, steady in your hands, simple but powerful. And you see yourself, no longer chasing, no longer fearing, but walking calmly, quietly, into a life shaped not by noise, but by wisdom. This is the gift of the Bogleheads' Guide to Investing. Not a promise of riches beyond imagination, but a path to a life rich in freedom, generosity, and peace. A reminder that true wealth is not measured in what you own, but in the calmness of your heart, the security of your family, and the meaning of your days. And as you rise to leave the meadow, the last light warm on your face, you carry with you not just knowledge, but something far more valuable. The understanding that money is a tool, and when used wisely, it builds not just accounts, but a life worth living. Worth living. Worth living. Worth living. Worth living. Worth living.